morning. So welcome back. I hope you had a good weekend. We have a mix of announcements and presentations today covering a whole range of school activities and programs. Deal with the most bureaucratic of them first. So a reminder to everyone in the 8th through 11th grade to please make sure you've turned in your course registration forms to advisors by the end of today. We are also going to hear some great music in a moment this morning, and we'll hear about the upcoming high school play later on. But I also wanted to take a minute to recognize the talent on display and the effort put into 2 sets of performances over the last few days. So congratulations and thank you to everyone involved in the junior school play Sherlock Holmes and the Portal of Time that had its final show on Saturday, and to the performers and faculty who helped with the winter music recital from yesterday afternoon. It's always great to have such a range of artistic offerings so often at MBA, so let's please congratulate everyone who took part. And on that artistic note, we are going to begin today with some music from Ethan Durham and Rock Bueno, who are going to perform Accolade by Jake Yuld.
Good? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. You won't leave the table, she won't leave your mind. Gotta get out of Ohio, feeling short on time. Eyeball your inheritance, dead stare at the bar. Put back one more, stumble under the stars. We could fly to Ireland, you know I'm good for the ticket. Try to smirk but you're smiling, no, I'll stick with it. Annie, I want you to marry me. We can wait a few years. I don't mean to frighten you, I just want to be clear. She's a drink behind you, stumble under the stairs. $10 for the last game, suck smoke from the air. Man, it cuts like a dull knife when you're young and you're told. Makes sense when you're older, darling, let's get old. Oh. Oh,
Thank you both for that performance. And we're now going to move into some announcements and presentations, beginning with two guests we're very fortunate to have with us this morning. We have Marcus Bagwell from News 2 and Ashley Williams from Second Harvest. They're going to give us an update and a presentation related to a Second Harvest campaign. So please join me in welcoming them this morning.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm glad to be here with you all. My name is Marcus Bagwell, and I'm a meteorologist and traffic anchor with News 2 here in Nashville. I'm on Good Morning Nashville, and I'm excited to be here with you all today at Montgomery Bell Academy, as once again, we are here to celebrate that you are our News 2 Food to Families Food Drive winner for the high school category. Your generosity is benefiting the Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee, plus local food pantries which partner with Second Harvest. We're excited to be able to celebrate and to give you a wonderful surprise in which you've helped donate for all of your canned good donations for Second Harvest. I want to introduce you to Ashley Lewis with Second Harvest Food Bank, and she has information on the exact numbers that you all contributed to help those in need. Ashley?
All right. Thank you, Marcus. Thanks to the continued support of WKRN News 2, 31 schools across our 36-county service area donated more than 300,000 meals during the Food to Families campaign. We are especially proud of Montgomery Bell Academy for raising 120,581 meals, which was the most in your category. Seeing the passion from our younger generation for the fight against hunger during Food to Families lets us at Second Harvest know that there's a bright future ahead for the people of Middle and West Tennessee. Thank you so much again. You should be proud of the impact that you made on your community.
$120,500 meals, which is a lot, and that helps support the community around us. And thank you so much for your generosity, for taking time to help bring these canned goods in, to help supply all of that. So on behalf of News 2 and our wonderful Fifth Third Bank sponsor, we want to present you with this $1,000 check, and we are very proud, and we want to congratulate you on everything that you've done to help support our community.
So thank you for being here this morning, and also thank you to everyone who took part in that campaign. I think you got a sense there of how much your donations matter, how much the efforts you all made matter, and it's always nice to hear about how those efforts are being received. Okay, we're going to move into some other announcements now. Now, over the last 12 months, there have been lots of pretty dramatic competitions to watch and get excited about. I'm sure you've been following most of them. Some of the recent NFL playoffs would be examples. The World Cup soccer final back in December, the England cricket team's dramatic victory in Pakistan a few months earlier, all gripped the world's attention. But I would suggest to you that none of those compared to the excitement, tension, and drama we all witnessed here last year during the finals of the NBA Integral B. And on that note, Mr. Davidson is now going to introduce this year's competition.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd. So true story, last summer my family went on vacation to Townsend's Inlet at the beach. And you may enjoy beach vacations. I am not a fan of beach vacations. I don't like sand and getting sunburnt and applying aloe. So every morning the family would say, "Hey Mike, we're going to the beach, you want to come?" And I would say, "I'm not feeling very good. I'm going to stay back." That was a lie. I felt really good. You know why? because I was at the beach house making the integrals for this year's Integral Bee. Now, as you know, last year was the first annual Integral Bee, and after we finished, there were a lot of questions I got. That was a lot of fun. I hope this happens again. But there were 4 key questions, and because it's the second annual Integral Bee, I want to do my best to answer those questions. Those questions were, number 1, what is an integral? Number 2, why do we care about them? Number 3, what makes an integral hard? And number 4, why were there judges? All right, to answer the first question, what is an integral? I'll use a pretty simple example. Now, I know it's assembly, and Dr. Boyd says I have 45 minutes, so I'll have to be pretty concise here. But let's use an example of the integral from 3.5 to 5 of 6 dx. Now, if I were to graph 6 on a coordinate plane, I'll try to keep it, I know this is a complex topic, but if I were to graph just y equals 6 on a coordinate plane, we could think of that integral as the area under the curve between 3.5 and 5. And everyone, I think even in those in the 7th grade here, could say, well, that's just a geometry question. I could just multiply 3.5 times 5. I'd get the area under the curve, which in this case would equal the integral, which would give us 9. So it's not always true, but for broad strokes, let's imagine for now the integral is the area under the curve. So next question, why do we care about them? Well, there's a lot of reasons we'd care about them, and often it's not because they represent area. So let's think about an example. Let's say again we're looking at the integral from 3.5 to 5 of 6 dx. If a member of MBA's cross-country team runs at 6 miles per hour from 3:30 p.m. to 5 p.m., how far does he run? Well, if I look back at that graph, I could imagine that the y value would represent the rate, 6 miles per hour, and the change in x would represent the time, which would be 1.5 hours, and by multiplying the rate times the time, we would get the distance traveled, which would be 9 miles would be traveled. Doesn't have to be physics, even though that was originally what calculus was invented for. It could be if Mr. Davidson eats 6 cookies per second from 3.5 seconds to 5 seconds, how many cookies does he eat? And the answer would be 9 cookies. It could be if Dr. Bailey makes 6 puns per period, how many puns will he make from halfway through 4th period through the end of 5th period? And the answer would be 9 puns. All right, so what makes finding an integral hard? Well, most of you can do the area of a rectangle. It gets tough when the area under the curve is not a rectangle. For example, the integral from -2 to 5 of 3x squared dx. That would look something like the area on the board. Then what? Well, I could approximate using a bunch of rectangles, or I can find what's called the antiderivative, plug in 5, plug in -2, and subtract. Is that hard? Well, it depends. Finding the antiderivative of a constant is quite straightforward. The integral of 6 dx would simply be 6x plus c. I could plug in 5, plug in 3.5, and subtract, and I would get 9 using the antiderivative instead of using geometry. Well, what I'm basically doing there is going from, I could think of a velocity function to a position function and changing the change and finding the change in position. Now, of course, we spend whole years talking about derivatives and integrals, and we've got more like 3 minutes today. If that didn't make sense, that's totally okay. However, I will say that last year's Integral Bee had contestants from 7th grade through 12th grade. Well, it'll be primarily upperclassmen competing. You are more than welcome to compete if you're a 7th grader who wants to take on the challenge. To see what a harder integral looks like, let's imagine the following. The integral of 2x times x squared plus 7 squared dx. Now, they'll get much more challenging in the later rounds of the Integral Bee, but you could solve an integral like that with many different methods. You could use U substitution, you could use distribution in the power rule, you could use integration by parts, and what you'll see are 3 very different looking answers, all of which are correct. And this is going to answer the why do we have judges question. Last year, when the answer was, for example, 1550, I knew very quickly if someone got the answer right or wrong. On questions like this, it helps me to have judges to decide, is that answer that may look different than the answer I got also correct? So that's why we have judges at the Integral Bee. I know that was probably not what you were expecting on a Monday morning to start off assembly as a quick lesson on integration, but I'm very excited about this year's Integral Bee. I think it's going to be even better than last year's. If you have interest in competing, please email me. That's my email address by the end of this week. We'll start setting up the placement test and the later rounds. Much like last year, the championship round will take place here during assembly on April 10th, 2023. There are still Amazon gift cards for the winner, $100 Amazon gift card, and for second place, $50 gift card, but that compares not at all to the glory of winning this year's Integral B. Best of luck. I look forward to it. See you soon.
Okay, from math to the classical stage, we are now going to get an introduction of the high school play that we'll be showing in February, Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. This is a play that relates to several aspects of MBA's academic life, and to illustrate that, we have a Caesarean cross-section of faculty members from different departments to present on this. I believe Ms. Ellery is going first, so I'm going to turn it over to her. Please welcome her to the podium.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd. Good morning. I'm Ms. Ellery. It's been such fun to collaborate with my amici, Dr. Fuller and Mrs. Bassett, as well as the cast and crew on their marvelous production of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. I can tell you I've been amazed by their incredible questions and by how deeply each cast member is thinking about the history behind their characters. So for the next few minutes, I'll also share with you a little about the ancient context as a backdrop for the brilliant performances you'll see in just about a month from now when the show opens. So cast your minds back with me to the Rome of the play. It's 44 BC, and the portal of time has taken us back to a violent decade in an extremely violent century of Roman history. What was once the city on 7 hills has for 100 years been expanding to become the superpower of the Western Mediterranean, thanks to Rome's decisive defeat of Carthage in 3 Punic Wars. More recently, it's only been 6 years ago since Caesar himself has added Gaul, that's France, Belgium, and parts of Switzerland, to the Roman risk board in 50 BC. Beyond its walls, Rome is on the rise, and the Romans are confidently but correctly now referring to the Mediterranean as Mare Nostrum, our sea. But internally, the city could not be more divided about how to govern an expanding and unwieldy state. Since their illegal takeover of Rome in 60 BC, the first triumvirate, or Gang of Three, comprised of Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus, continued what other generalissimos had started 2 decades earlier by using their power and influence, as well as bribes and threats, to break with the customs of the Republic and take autocratic power for themselves. Of that Gang of Three, Caesar alone is still alive, having turned his return trip from Gaul into an armed coup d'etat by crossing the Rubicon in 49, just 5 years before the events of this play, and initiating a civil war that would see Pompey defeated and Caesar as top dog. The Senate was comprised of mostly aristocrats who had sided with Pompey against Caesar, so when you see them in the play wringing their hands about Caesar's increasingly kingly ways, keep in mind that there's also an element of the sore loser there. Okay, so when March 15th, the Ides of March arrive and you see the grisly murder of Caesar halfway through the play, remember that the bloody assassination would have been in an actual theater, or at least a theater complex. The Roman Senate house had been burned in an act of mob violence and was being repaired by Caesar to align physically with his new forum that he was building. So the Senate was meeting in Pompey's Curia, which you can see the arrow pointing to on the slide, at the east end of his vast theater complex. I think Shakespeare would have relished the chance to set this most dramatic of scenes in a sort of a play within a play. Finally, when you hear Caesar's last gasp, et tu, Brute, and watch Brutus wrangle with how friendship, duty, and honor are for him irreconcilable, think carefully about the libertas, or freedom, Brutus and his conspirators claimed to be fighting for. They called themselves the liberators of Rome. What sort of freedom were they talking about, and for whom? On the next slide, we see a coin struck after Caesar's death, while Brutus and Cassius were amassing the forces that would lead them eventually to their ultimate defeat in a year and a half at Philippi. On the obverse is a portrait of Brutus signaling his role as imperator, or general, and on the reverse, we see the Ides of March commemorated with 2 daggers and a hat, but it's not just any hat. It's the Palais cap, worn in ancient Rome by freed slaves, and used throughout history, including our own Revolutionary War, as a symbol of liberation from tyrannical rule. This coin is evidence that Brutus was eager to put in the pockets of all Romans a solid reminder that his face and name were synonymous with libertas. But one question to ask as you watch the play is, for whose freedom Brutus and the other assassins are really fighting? What did libertas look like in an ancient society in which human enslavement was an unquestioned aspect of life, and the privileged few held all the cards? What did freedom look like to the audience of the opening of the Globe Theater in 1599, the first audience to see Shakespeare's Julius Caesar performed? And most importantly, what does freedom look like to us? What does it mean to you? Gratias omnes, and enjoy the show.
Good morning. Thank you, Miss Ellery, for collaborating with us, for being part of the group of three, the gang of three, for giving us this context, which in theater we would call the given circumstances for these historical characters that both help the actors and the audience alike understand their actions. I'm going to speak for just a little bit about the rehearsal process in the little time I have with you. It starts with understanding the big picture, the arc of the play, which is also referred to as the through line or spine, and then understanding your individual characters' objectives, their motives, what drives them, the obstacles that they face, the strategies and tactics they use to reach their goals. In the next couple of minutes, I want to share with you a couple of discoveries we found in the last week or two, and along this path that we're going to opening night in a month. Perhaps the greatest achievement of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar is that it evokes such widely differing responses, as Ms. Ellery alluded, partially because of how Shakespeare's characters manipulate their words. The word honor is said 30 times. As all our high school students may remember, honorable is the word Mark Antony, played by Alex Tarkovsky in our production, uses carefully and repeatedly to manipulate the feelings of his audience. As Alex explored in rehearsal last Friday, his effectiveness was determined by the timing of his change of tone when he called Brutus an honorable man. Irony too early or too late fails to sway them. Last week, when we rehearsed their first confrontation, we noticed how Cassius, played in our production by Frank Pierce, keeps trying different tactics with Brutus, played by Joseph Hastings, to convince him to join the conspirators. Cassius speaks of jealousy and unfairness. Those are Cassius's own feelings he's projecting, before finding the reason that effectively motivates Brutus to join the conspirators in their plot against Caesar. Our biggest challenge is memorization, getting off book. That's our focus this week, and you know, it's theme week, so it makes it that much harder. People often meet our actors in the lobby after the show, and the first thing they say is, "How do you memorize all those lines?" Seriously, with everything else on their plate, how do our actors memorize all those lines? Especially in a play like Julius Caesar, those Romans like to talk. It's difficult, and it's time-consuming, but it's also potentially transforming. With learning the words, our actors will transform themselves as they create portraits of other human beings who lived 2,067 years ago. That's amazing. And somehow in the process of speaking in another person's voice, you sometimes find confidence in your own. I know I did. Somehow putting on the shoes of another, your humanity grows. Your understanding of others and of yourself grows. That is the actor's art, or at least it's part of it. And it ain't easy. It deserves respect. So when you come to see the play next month, and we hope you will, and you greet the actors afterwards and ask, how did you memorize all those lines? Remember, the words, words, words are just the beginning. Thank you.
Last week, before play rehearsal began, Reed Sullivan said, "Mrs. Bassett, I loved your class, but I'm not sure I really understood Julius Caesar when we read it in the 8th grade." Maybe Reed expected me to feel depressed. Instead, I felt like a part of a success. As a senior, he should look at Shakespeare's work 5 years later and see something he didn't see before. Learning to read Shakespeare takes time, effort, and focus. With that time, effort, and focus, we are rewarded with a nuanced view into a thousands-year-old story that resonates through the ages. After Reed left my class, he spent a year with Dr. Sly, then another year with Mr. Markham, then another year with Dr. Onstadt, and now he rests in Mr. Thompson's capable hands. Because of the work of these capable men, my former student now approaches Julius Caesar with a hard-earned set of analytical skills. But before the English department takes all the credit, I should add that all the other departments in the school also have a hand in our hoped-for theatrical success. In chemistry labs, German classes, geometry proofs, and art studios, we strive for independent analytical thinking. And for the adults who spend their careers at this school, it is the work of our lifetime. Some of you may be familiar with the word liturgy. We can define liturgy as the work of the people. Liturgy, the work of the people, is something that happens here every day. On the wrestling mat, in the swimming pool, and the finance office, in the security golf cart, in the library, and in the academic dean's office. This work, which I'm privileged to witness, will constitute the vast majority of the work of my life. Most students will spend 4 to 6 years here, but for most faculty and staff, the time will extend much longer. When Mr. Joya approached us about sharing our experience with our current production of the play, I was initially at a loss for what I might say. Why am I enjoying this collaboration so much? After considerable reflection, I arrived at the answer. My liturgy with my students. The students are why I'm enjoying it. Each spring, I get to teach Shakespeare's 424-year-old text with new students, and each spring I watch students grow. They grow beyond Massey, and eventually they grow beyond the school. I don't often have the opportunity to spend extended time with students after they leave the junior school, but with this play, I have the opportunity to do so. And as a bonus, that opportunity includes close work with teachers far more capable than I. In closing, I invite you to pause the weekend of February 23rd through 26th and come see a famous and timeless play. Shakespeare always was and always will be for the people. We'd love to have you join us, especially if in these short, cold winter days, you feel the need to watch someone get stabbed 23 times, and that someone is Reed. Thank you for lending us your ears.
So thank you to all three of you for sharing your thoughts and the creativity of that presentation. I hope you will all get a chance to see the play when it is performed in February. We have one last presentation coming up. This is from some students related to the exchange programs. We've been on a kind of 3-year COVID-enforced hiatus, but we are glad to have most of our exchange programs up and running again, and soon you will hear from Mrs. Scholler in a few weeks about how to apply for those. We're going to hear from 3 students today about hosting and participating in exchange programs. It is very important for us in keeping these exchange programs going that we find volunteer families at MBA to host students as well. I should also note that that is taken into consideration when we look at applications from MBA students hoping to go on exchanges in the summer. So to talk a little bit more about their experiences in that regard, we're going to hear from Connor Carr, Gus Kirkland, and Hayden Kirkland, who are coming up to the podium now.
Good morning. My name's Connor Carr, and I'm here with me today is Hayden Gus Kirkland. We were fortunate enough to each host boys from South Africa last semester. I hosted Louis Dupree for about 8 weeks and really enjoyed learning about his culture and what kind of took place in his everyday life in South Africa. When he first got here, we took him to our favorite amusement park in Florida, and while he was there, he kind of gave us a glimpse into all the ones that he's seen all throughout Africa and Europe. We like to compare our favorite music, and I was pleasantly surprised at how much American music they listen to in South Africa. He also tried to teach me his second language, which is called Afrikaans, but that didn't get very far. Louis brought little souvenir animals that he would hand out to people that he met while he was here so that they kind of had a little bit of a taste of when he left and something from South Africa. His mom also brought a lot of the traditional South African snacks and like candy bars when she came to visit, and that gave me a glimpse into just how unhealthy American food was. One of the best parts about having an exchange student is it's like one of your closest friends, but you're with him 24/7. It took a couple of days for me and Louis to warm up to each other, but after that, we pretty much spent the whole day together. It's pretty relaxing to be able to come home from a long day of school and just be able to sit on the couch and watch a movie or play video games with one of your best friends. Hosting an exchange student also created a lot of opportunities with unexpected groups or people. Whether it was Coach Major's art class or FCA, Louis touched the lives of many people in this MBA community, and I encourage you all to look into our amazing exchange program we have here at MBA.
I had the opportunity to host 2 South African exchange students during the first semester for about 3 weeks. Matt Nell and Luke Payne were some dudes. I had an excellent time with these 2 guys and felt honored to be able to show them the Nashville way of life. This summer, I was able to stay with a host family in Spain for 3 weeks, so it was a wonderful opportunity to be able to reciprocate the hospitality that I had warmly received by the Blancos in Spain. At first, I was nervous. I did not know what to expect from the boys, and I was nervous as to how I was going to entertain them for 3 weeks. But I soon found out how enjoyable it was spending time with the boys. We liked the same things. I showed them all the yummy places to eat, such as Hattie B's and Taqueria, and I took them to my property where we rode the Can-Am, and they thoroughly enjoyed themselves with this activity. They were fun, engaging, and easygoing. There was some language barrier conflicts, as I would often have to ask them 1,000 times to repeat themselves with certain words in their accent, but aside from that, I had no complaints. I got them some dates to homecoming and showed them the Nicolane Halloween experience. At the end, we reflected on their stay, and they were both confirmed how nervous they were to heading into this experience, but soon we clicked and the nervousness dissipated. It is well worth y'all's whiles to host exchange students. You have the opportunity to gain a friend overseas, and maybe one day I will visit them in South Africa, and I know that I have a fantastic family that would let me in their home. MBA exchange program is an excellent opportunity that everyone should look into. Thank you.
Hey guys, I'm Hayden, and like Gus said, I also hosted Matt and Luke for 3 weeks. So Connor hosted Louis for 6 weeks, and what Gus and I did was kind of a joint thing. So we each had 2 for 3 weeks, which was really nice. Initially, like Gus said, I was worried about entertaining them, and I was worried about what my free time would look like with 2 boys living in my house. So the solution was partnered with Gus to swap after 3 weeks, and it really was nice to have 2, because if I was busy with homework or if I was tired after practice, they could hang out with each other and watch TV or play video games or whatever. But also just like conversation-wise, it wasn't small talk, it was genuine conversations between the 3 of us. And they were extremely friendly and easy. I thought maybe it would be weird at first with 2 people from a completely different continent living in my house. But they were outgoing, friendly. They got along well with the students here at MBA. And I would really encourage anybody who's able to look into hosting. It was an amazing experience and really developed a strong, ongoing friendship with these boys. And a big thank you to Ms. Scholler. She was a tremendous help throughout this whole process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and I hope you will consider either applying for the exchange programs or offering to host an exchange student here. Finally, we've got some athletic announcements. Trey Wick is going to give an announcement about an upcoming hockey game, and then Mr. Anderson's going to review some recent athletic results.
Men, tonight I invite you to a party. The party tonight, 7:40 at Centennial, is very special, and I'll tell you why. If NBA hockey wins tonight, when we win tonight, and Ravenwood loses on Thursday, this group of seniors and Lee Guy will leave NBA with 3 G. Nash Cups to their name. It's a very special night, and I hope to see y'all there because, statistically, and this is proven by science, we play better when you all show up and support the boys. So I hope to see each and every one of you there tonight. Thank you.
Due to time constraints, I'm only going to cover the varsity stuff from last week. Varsity wrestling, they defeated Nashville Christian and BA, and they lost to Father Ryan in a great match on Friday. Varsity swimming Saturday, they lost to McCauley. They defeated Innsworth. Some of the winners were Isaiah Doolin, Oliver Pilkington, Jay Schlosser, Isaiah J. and Oliver and Michael Kong were in the 200-meter medley relay. They won that. Varsity basketball lost to BA, and then they beat Lipscomb. Hockey tied Ravenwood. That was a packed week, but this week's also going to be a packed week, and I'd like to pack the rink and the gyms, as Mr. Wick just alluded to. Tonight, 7:40 at Centennial. Tuesday night basketball is at Ryan at 7:30. Wednesday wrestling at Ryan versus Wilson Central at 6. Friday basketball 7:30 at Innsworth. And Saturday 5 o'clock at Lipscomb basketball. Please come out and support your classmates as you've done all year long. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you all. Have a good week.